In the last video, we have seen the concept of joint PMF, that is how to handle two random variables together. We can similarly handle more than two random variables together considering the notion of joint PMF. Further, we have seen the notion of conditional PMF, which will help us to understand how one random variable is conditioned on the other random variable, in particular in terms of events. So naturally, when we study probability of events, there is one important notion. That notion is of independence. So now the question is, how do we study independence among random variables? So let us first understand the generalized notion of multiplication rule in terms of random variables. So here is what the thing that is given is the generalized notion for three random variables. When I want to reproduce a multiplication rule for more than two random variables, in particular we will talk in terms of events. If we talk in terms of events, it is A intersection B intersection C. Then what happens? We write this as probability of A into probability of B given A into probability of C given A intersection B. So if you analyze our notion of independence over here, maybe I should have used different color, but if you analyze the event A is referred to as x is equal to x, the event B is referred to as y is equal to y, and event C is referred to as capital Z is equal to small z. If you use this particular terminology for A intersection B intersection C and write this formula, then you will exactly get this formulation, which is starred. That is, the probability mass function of xyz at x small y small z is equal to the marginal probability mass function of x at small x into probability of conditional PMF of y given x, where the values taken by random variables y and x are small y and small x, and the probability, this is the conditional probability for the event A intersection B, that is for random variables x and y being equal to x and y respectively. So it is pz given xy of the values small z given small x and small y. So if you read this out clearly, then it is nothing but the exact replication of the events that we were considering when we were considering the notion of independence. So this is in general multiplication rule. So when we studied when we were not studying random variables and when we were studying the theory of events, if you remember, if I have more than two events, then I need to check all the possible sub collections to check the independence of the events. But when we study random variables, we are little bit structured and we are always dealing with elementary events of the form Pxx, that is probability of x is equal to x, while studying discrete random variables. So in that case, what happens is only this set of condition is sufficient to check the independence of random variables. But is this set of condition the only condition? No, it actually involves several conditions. So let me demonstrate this to you through an example in this small space that is available to me. Let us say if I want to talk about three events A, B, C, then I need to check first they are pairwise independent, that is A, B, A, C and B, C are independent by themselves, so they are pairwise independent, and their entire intersection A intersection B intersection C is equal, probability of A intersection B intersection C is equal to probability of A into probability of B into probability of C. So when you analyze that notion, it may appear to you that what we are doing here is just checking the condition where we are checking probability of A intersection B intersection C is equal to product of probabilities. But that is not the case. How? I will show you. Let us take two random variables x and z. So I will have their joint distribution as pxz, and I want to check the independence of random variables x and z. So what I will do, I have the law of marginal probabilities. So I will introduce the notion of marginal probability, and I will write this in terms of joint using this multiplication rule that I have given you. So joint over y of p x y z x y z. If this is not clear to you, go back and check our notion of marginal PMF of y and check the notion of conditional probabilities. So what I am essentially doing is I am multiplying this with PYY and summing it over. Okay, so I got this. Once I get this is in fact going to be equal to, because the random variables are independent, this condition is known to me. This is in fact going to be equal to summation over y px of x, py of y and pz of z. Now you can easily see that px of x and pz of z are not dependent on the value of y. So I can throw them out. Px of x, pz of z, and what is this sum? This sum over y of pyy is going to be equal to 1. So what we have proved just now is, if you consider any two random variables in this set, that is xz, it is true that the product of their joint probability is equal to the product of their marginal probabilities. And this is not there is nothing special with x and z. You can take xy and do the same thing. In that case you will sum over z. You can take xz, you have already taken, and you can take yz. With all these random variables you will be able to satisfy this condition. Therefore, the beauty of coming to the theory of random variable is revealed once more, that the checking of condition of independence become an easy task. You have to check only this condition, and then all other conditions of pairwise independence and everything will follow. Okay, let us now understand this through some examples. Let us take this particular setup example which we have studied with my mild alteration of probabilities. Wherever there are no probabilities written, they are actually 0. Okay. So you can check whether this is a valid PMF or not. That's not my interest. This is a valid PMF. Here the first question is, are x and y independent? Given the notion of independence which is given here, that is this notion which is given here, you can actually check, you can do a computational theory, you can do the computation and show that they are independent or not. But just looking at this picture, if I tell you that the random variable x has taken the value 1, can you say something about the random variable y? Definitely, I can say that the random variable y, given that x has taken the value 1, the random variable y must take the value 2. Otherwise, all other things have probability 0. That means the information about x reveals the behavior of y. Therefore, the random variables cannot be independent. So the answer to first question is no. They are not independent. Okay. Then when we studied probability theory for events, we also saw one notion of conditional independence. So what does this conditional independence involve? If you remember the diagram that I have drawn, so we had something like this, and then we had some A and B, and then I drew something like C which doesn't have any overlap between A and B. Let me erase it because it had some overlap. Then I drew some C which didn't have any overlap between A and B, and therefore we said that these events are conditionally dependent. So if you recollect that notion of conditional independence, then let us try to analyze conditional independence based on the events. So let us take one event which is x is greater than or equal to 2, and the other one is y is less than or equal to 2. And the question that is asked to you is, are x and y independent given the event A intersection B has happened? So what is the event A intersection B? It is actually x greater than or equal to 2 combined with y less than or equal to 2. So let us understand this event in this table. So what this event will be? So my x is greater than or equal to 2. So it starts from here. It starts from here and goes throughout, and y is less than or equal to 2, therefore it ends here. So now my event is this. Great. And given that this event has happened, what should be the probability mass function of the conditional probability mass function? Let us try to write that conditional probability mass function. So while computing conditional probability mass functions, you always remember a shortcut. That is, it will if the denominator is same, then you just need to have appropriate proportions. So let me write it down here. So in this case, this is 3, 2, 3, 2, and what is the sum of all these? 10. So it will be 3 by 10, 2 by 10, 3 by 10, 2 by 10. Okay. So now the question, so I have the probability mass function, conditional probability mass function. I can rewrite this as Pxy given A intersection B of xy, where A intersection B is listed here. Okay. So now I want to check whether these events are independent. That means what do I need to check? That means I need to check Px given A intersection B of x into Py given A intersection B of y. This product is equal to the conditional PMF. So for this I need these marginal PMFs 1 and 2. So let us try to compute these marginal PMFs first, and then so by this time you must have realized that marginal PMFs are either row sums or column sums. So we will just compute those row sums and column sums and verify whether this is a valid PMF or not. So if we take the row sums, so this row sum will be for y is equal to 2, it is equal to 5 by 10. This row sum for y is equal to 1, which is again 5 by 10. Then you take the column sum 6 by 10 and another column sum which should be 4 by 10, and together both these the top row and last column together they should sum to 1, and that is what is happening. Therefore this is a valid PMF. So I don't have any issues with this. Now let us check whether this condition is actually satisfied or not. So let us first take the random variable where the value x is actually 2 and the value y is 1. So I am getting for Pxy of 2, 1 given A intersection B to be equal to 3 by 10. What is the marginal probability? That is Px of 2, it is 6 by 10, and what is Py of 1? That is 5 by 10. So multiply 6 by 10 with 5 by 10, you will get 30 by 100, which is equal to 3 by 10. In a similar manner, let us do one more, which is let us say x is equal to 3 and y is equal to 2. So I have the probability given to be equal to 2 by 10. I will multiply with 5. I will multiply with marginals. That is, for y it is 5 by 10 and for x it is 4 by 10. So 5 into 4 by 100, that is 20 by 100, which gives me 2 by 10, which exactly verifies with this. Fantastic. So what we have shown here, and it is same is true for the other two. So what we have shown here is, though x and y were not independent, which was very much visible, given A intersection B, x and y are actually independent. Yes, they are independent. So this is how the notion of conditional independence in terms of random variables works. So now we have captured almost all the concepts that are related to theory of probability theory of events and extended them to the theory of random variables. Now a concept that is very typical for random variables is expectation. This you cannot do when you are considering the probability theory of events. So I want to generalize the notion of expectation for multiple random variables. How will I do that? Let us see first what do I know. If I know expected value of x is defined as x p summation over x pxx, that is what I know. Now if I have random variables xy, a tuple together, and if I define a function g which actually takes these values and goes into takes these two random variables and goes into R. So in particular I am talking about g as a function from R2 to R. Then what I am actually generating from multiple random variables is a single random variable. If I am generating from two random variables a single random variable, my law of unconscious statistician is still valid. Therefore, I will use the law of unconscious statistician and say that expected value of gxy is nothing but sum over x sum over y gxy joint PMF of xy at evaluated at x and y. Okay, so law of unconscious statistician is valid, therefore I can compute several things. Let us use this law of unconscious statistician or LOTUS to prove some result which is very familiar to you in single random variable case. That is, expected value of alpha x plus beta is alpha times expected value of x plus beta, where these alpha and beta are real numbers. If I want to generalize this for two random variables, I will have z to be equal to expected alpha x plus beta y. G of xy is alpha x plus beta y. Now what will happen to this? Use the law of unconscious statistician and prove the result. Let us try to prove it. So if I apply the law of unconscious statistician, LOTUS, is summation over x summation over y alpha x plus beta y into pxy joint PMF of xy evaluated at xy. Now the interesting part is, because this is a linear function, I can split with the addition sign. Therefore I will split this into two parts. So I will write I will skip one step, so I will tell this orally. So I can write this summation over x alpha x into summation over y pxy plus summation over y beta y into summation over x pxy. If I do that, then what I get here is summation over x alpha x as it is, and summation over y pxy will give me, as we have seen, as marginal PMF of x. In a similar manner, because everything is finite, there is no question of swapping the summations. So I can swap the summations easily. There is no problem with swapping the summations. Therefore, I can swap the summations easily, and the other party will give me beta times y marginal PMF of y. And this further gives me, I can throw out alpha, and if I throw out alpha, the term within the summation will give me expected value of x. And similarly, if I throw out beta, the term within the summation will give me expected value of y. Therefore, the linearity property is valid for expectation. So if I have a linear function of x and y, I can write this as sum of expectations. In a similar manner, if I have a non-linear function, then I cannot have this formula, which is a standard remark that we have already mentioned at many places. So right now my answer is this. So my expected value of alpha x plus beta y is nothing but alpha times expected value of x plus beta times expected value of y. This proves one more property, and this doesn't require independence of random variables. Now let us look at what happens if x and y are independent and gxy, your gxy, x comma y, is nothing but product of these two random variables. So I am again appealing to the law of unconscious statistician. So if gxy is product of these two random variables, then we have a result which is given as product of expectations. Further, you can write some other function where g and h are functions of from r to r, and because they are independent, you will have expected value of gx into hy, which is equal to expected value of gx into expected value of hy. So what independence is doing here is, because the random variables are independent, so y is not conveying any information about x. Therefore, if I take the product of their expectation, if I take their product and take the expectation, then it will actually turn out to be product of the expectations. Okay, let us try to prove this result, and if gx is x and hy is y, this result will be proved. But let us try to prove it in general, that is this identity. This identity we will prove when x and y are independent. So I have to typically use the fact where x and y are independent. So let us start with the left hand side, expected value of gx into h of y. This is equal to, use lotus, summation over x, summation over y, g of small x, h of small y, and the joint PMF of xy. So if they are independent, what happens? This joint PMF splits into product. That gives you the hint. So if I write that joint PMF, let me write it here in the cloud. This is actually equal to pxx into pyy. So if this is the case, then I can easily split this as gx pxx sum over y hy pyy. Essentially I am talking about marginals then. But what is this particular thing? This is nothing but expected value of gx, again by lotus. And what is this? This is expected value of hy, again by lotus, right? So I have proved this result. Whenever g and h are functions from r to r and you are considering the product of gx and hy, you will get expectation of a product to be product of expectation. This is when x and y are independent. Now let us focus on a very specific function that we have studied for single random variable case, which is the variance function. Variance of alpha x plus beta, we have already shown, is alpha square times variance of x. What happens when we are considering the variance of this joint PMF? So first of all, does it make sense to consider variance of joint PMF? Let us take the variance of function of joint PMF, and then we will make sense of variance of joint PMF. Let us first take what will happen to variance of x plus y in general, that is my gxy is x plus y. I can compute this variance, but can I give a formula in terms of variance? Okay. So in order to do that, let us first consider the extreme dependence of random variables, that is x is equal to y. And I am talking about variance of x plus y. So when I consider x is equal to y, what I am talking about is, I will replace this y with x. So x plus x, so I am talking about variance of 2x. So it's actually one single random variable, and from the formula that is defined above, I will get this to be equal to 4 times variance of x. Okay. Now let us look at the variance of x is equal to minus y. What happens to this? So let me write it, variance of x plus y, and my x is actually minus y. So variance of minus y plus y, which is actually variance of 0. So what is a variance of a constant? You look at this expression, beta was a constant, and what was its variance? It was 0. So it's 0. Okay. So from this I can conclude that if I want to compute variance of x plus y, I cannot compute it generally, because while in these extreme dependent cases it varies from 0 to 4 times variance of x. So I need some condition. So what condition do I know from our discussion? I know that these random variables can be independent. So what if the random variables x and y are independent? Can I talk about the variance? Then it is very easy. Then we will talk about the general linear combination, because we have already derived a formula for expectation of alpha x plus beta y. So let us talk about z, which is g of xy, being minus 2x plus 4y, or you can replace this with alpha x plus beta y, it doesn't matter. So let us take this special case and treat that x and y are independent. Then what happens? Okay, so what happens? So I want to compute variance of z. So what will be the variance of z? This will be equal to expected value of minus 2x plus 4y minus expected value of minus 2x plus 4y the whole square, and this term, sorry, okay, let me do it this way. Yeah, so minus expected value of x plus 2x minus 4y, this entire thing squared. Okay, so let us go ahead and do further calculations. And remember, I have to use that these random variables are independent somewhere. So let us go ahead and get the deal cracked by expanding this sum. So in this particular case, the term within the second parenthesis, that is this term, I know what is the answer. So I can rewrite this as minus 2x plus, because minus 2 will come out, expected value of x, minus 2x minus 2 times expected value of x plus 4y minus 4 expected value of y, this whole term squared, which is also equal to expected value of, now you look at the terms separately, that is, I am talking about the term which is, let us take out this minus 2 common, and I get the term which is x minus expected value of x. This is the term that I need for variance of x, plus 4 times y minus expected value of y, and this entire thing squared together. Okay. Okay, so now we have to do some tricks. So let us open this square, and that will give me, so I will keep these things intact, x and y, because I need everything in terms of variance. So what will happen here? So it is this term is a, this is b, so a plus b the whole square, so it will be a square plus b square, which will be say 16, and a plus b the whole square plus 2ab, right? So that minus 2 is there and 4 is there. 8 times x minus expected value of x and y minus expected value of y, right? And then comes the square bracket, which is this. Okay, so everything is under expectation. Let me slightly shrink this so that everything is visible. Okay, so now everything you see, this expectation we have already seen is a linear operator. Everything you see is just sum or subtraction. Fine. So I can use the property of expectation being linear. I can throw this out, that is 4 into, again I am using lotus in some sense, 4 into expected value of x minus expected value of x the whole square plus 16 into expected value of y minus expected value of y the whole square minus 8 into expected value of x minus expected value of x into y minus expected value of y. Okay, so now this term which is here is of some interest. It is creating something which is non-trivial. Let us focus on these two, the first two terms, and then come to the third term. So this is in fact going to be equal to, what is this term? By definition this is nothing but variance of x. So it is 4 times variance of x plus 16 times variance of y minus 8 times this term in the square brackets. Let us keep it aside. So I got something which is very similar to my earlier result, which was on variance, that is variance of alpha x plus beta is alpha square times variance of x. So I got that alpha square, because I had minus 2 I got 4, and I had 4 I got 4 with y, so I got 16. But only thing that is puzzling me is this term. Let us try to handle this term. So what is this term? This is actually expected value of x minus expected value of x into y minus expected value of y, right? So what I can do is I can expand this term and see what happens. So here actually what I will get is expected value of xy minus x times expected value of y plus y times expected value of x, and then finally I will get something which is minus minus, so minus expected value of x into expected value of y, but both are minus signs, so this will be plus. Okay, and here it will be a minus sign. I missed it somehow, so let us put it as minus sign. So now again this expected value of y, expected value of x, all these are constants, so I am not worried about those constants. So I can rewrite this as expected value of xy minus expected value of x into expected value of y is nothing but minus expected value of x into expected value of y, and same is the story with the second term. So I will get minus 2 times expected value of x into expected value of y plus expected value of x into expected value of y. Good. So this minus 2 will cancel off with this and you will get this expression, which is equal to expected value of xy in minus expected value of x into expected value of y. But when, so far I have done a general derivation. So what I got here is very simple. Let me insert some space and write it the answer here. So what I got here is essentially this is equal to 4 times variance of x plus 16 times variance of y minus 8 times within bracket expected value of xy minus expected value of x into expected value of y. Good. So now if you look at this particular expression, if x and y are independent, then we have proved some result. If x and y are independent, then let us go back. What happens? If x and y are independent, you have this result. Expected value of xy is equal to expected value of x into expected value of y. So in that case, this term will actually become equal to 0, and in that case my result for the expression of variance of z, variance of, let me write minus 2x plus 4y is equal to 4 times variance of x plus 16 times variance of y. This is the result when I am considering x and y to be independent. If x and y are not independent, then I have given you a general formula which is of this form, and it has some meaning which is given over here, and this term is actually called covariance of xy. Okay. So this term is covariance of xy. Now let us bring in the notion of x is equal to y and x is equal to minus y. So in these cases, these are the cases of extreme dependence. So in this case, if I look at the covariance of xy, x is actually equal to y. What will it be? It will be like x. Therefore, it will be 4 times variance of x. When x is equal to minus y, we are actually cancelling off. So if x increases, y decreases, and whatever is the increase in x is cancelled by decrease in y. So in that case, the covariance will play a special role, and in computation it will be revealed. So for you now, the exercise is you compute the variance of x plus y when x is equal to y using this formulation which involves covariance. So let me write a general formulation of variance of alpha x plus beta y. I have shown you in specific case, but let me write it in general way. This will be alpha square times variance of x plus beta square times variance of y, which is visible here. So alpha was what? Alpha was minus 2, beta was 4, and therefore I got alpha square times variance of x plus beta square times variance of y, and in this case 2x 4y. Yeah, so this is actually a split for alpha x minus expected value of x, beta y minus expected value of y. Here I think I will get my 416 minus 4 into 2, which is 8, alpha x plus beta y, it may be multiplied with 2 because 2ab should come, so it will be 2 into 8ab, so 2 into 8ab, so this also is 2 into 8, so that's okay, so it's a minor computational error, so this is 2 into 8, and therefore finally what I get is plus 2 times alpha into beta covariance of x comma y. Okay, this is the formula that we will get for variance. Okay, that completes our discussion on joint multiple random variables. We have introduced a notion of covariance as well.